started. Everybody please rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Here.
Westfield,
Present.
Pat,
Here.
Wilczewski,
Here.
Lutz, Buckhauser,
Here.
Peters,
Here.
Teeley.
Here.
One established.
Okay, do we have any amendments to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to presentations. We do have a couple of presentations. I invited new County Board Chairman John Shaw here tonight to introduce him. I actually congratulate him on his election to chairman. I don't know if everyone here has met him, but John's been on his second term on county board, and several of us attended the meeting for swearing in. I think it was a week ago last Monday. John
had two of you there, the judge and
John was elected with near unanimous consent.
almost.
So congratulations. I think it's well deserved, John. I think you have a good board to lead, and we're really looking forward to working with you.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the invite. I've had a Morris address, Yorkville address since '77. We moved down into the bustling town of Platteville, and I sold a business that was in our family for 80 years, 4 years ago, and my son is still down there. So I feel I have a working knowledge of the county, especially the south end, and I did live in Oswego for a while when I first got out of the service. And anyway, it's a great honor to be invited to this meeting, and I hope we had a nice time at the mayors and managers gathering there, and I hope to sort of open up a new era of two-way street conversation with the cities. And thank you again.
Thank you, John. Feel free to stay. Okay, next we have pavement management study. Brad, do you want to walk us through this? Everyone should have a copy on their desk.
All right, good evening. We're here to discuss the pavement management and some of the findings that were determined based on the analysis that was done. If you recall, back 6 months or so ago, the council elected to move forward with such a study, and basically we're at a point to present the information here this evening. And to get to this point, it's been quite a bit of work. A lot of people have chipped in and provided input. Eric has been very helpful in running some of the software and assisting in putting together the program, as well as we certainly received quite a bit of input from Mark along the way, and then our subcontractor, IMS, of course, that did all the field work and provided all the data for us. So this evening, I'll pretty much be running through most of the slides, and then as necessary, Eric and Mark will chip in. So briefly, our plan is just to kind of review the project goals. We'll talk about the inspection results, discuss a little bit about the proposed maintenance and rehab. We ran some various budget scenarios, so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. Get to the recommended plan, and then Bart will cover the financing portion of the discussion. So if you recall, we established some goals. Basically, the first goal was to establish a pavement management system for the city. This would allow us to have a database of all the roadway networks within the city, length of roadways, pavement widths, curb lengths, so forth and so on, as well as collecting important data for the public works and signs and streetlights and what have you. Allowed us to have a tool to be able to develop a long-term plan. So with that, we want to develop a multi-year plan using a variety of techniques, rehab and maintenance techniques, and then also ideally look at a variety of different budget scenarios and their impacts to ultimately make some decisions. So the inspection themselves, that was again conducted by our subcontractor IMS. Basically, they drove the city streets. They looked at basically three conditions. They looked at the surface condition, which is your top part of your pavement. Then they also looked at the deflection and dynamic, the latter two basically being your sub-base or your area underneath your surface course. So basically all three components went into the overall pavement ranking. They're roughly weighted about a third each on the ranking system. So what do you have in the city? Basically, we have 107 miles of roadway within the city, so they were all tested. Of that, about 25 miles were binder only. So they're in areas that developments have not put the final surface course down, so they weren't accepted. So basically, in the numbers and the analysis moving forward, those were initially taken out. Once those are accepted, once the work is done, they'll be added back into the mix. So the current rating, overall rating is 82. Which basically says that 87% of your roadways are in the good or better condition based on the software. Another way to look at it, this is kind of a breakdown on mileage. The smaller two areas, the poor and the fair condition rankings, basically that amounts to about 11 miles worth of roadway within the city. So you can see the majority of the roadways kind of fall in the good and above categories. You do have some detailed exhibits in your handouts. Exhibit A, which does basically reflect the overall ratings of the roadway, just to give you a snapshot. So that does indicate that. Exhibit B is just your surface course. Typically, especially when you go out there and drive it, aesthetics, rideability, a lot of it is you're just analyzing your surface course, and if you look at your detailed map, you'll see a lot more orange and reds noted, which you can expect if you ever drove a lot of the streets. You know that your surface course is not, in several areas, are not in the best condition. So that's kind of a difference. This is strictly looking at surface. The previous exhibit was looking at your overall ranking, which included your base. So basically what the overall ranking is telling you is underneath your pavement, you have a strong base, you have a good base. Therefore, when you rehab these streets, you're not going to have to do a lot of reconstruction and remove your base and replace it. So basically, you're just dealing with the top pavement section. Next series of slides are just putting some pictures to the rankings. Just to kind of remind everybody what those are. We have an example of a poor rating, a fair rating, a good rated street on Spring, very good, and then excellent, just to kind of give you a feel, if you will. So once we obtained the rating data back from IMS, we were able to take the data and start looking at the software and utilizing the software to run various items. We were able to take that and develop recommended expenditures, establish timelines for preventative maintenance, and review a variety of rehab methods and make some choices on what works best for the city. And then taking that, we were able to develop some improvement schedules, a multi-year plan, and prioritize maximizing budget. And just a reminder, too, that this program, it's not always your worst first roadways that get selected. There's reasons why that's the case. Probably the best thing is to take a look at this pavement condition index, which you've seen before. This is kind of a typical lifespan of the pavement. Typically, when new pavement is established, it's rated at 100, and over time, during the first 5 years, you see kind of a rapid drop-off in its condition. And then there's kind of a flat period for 5, 7 years or so. And then once you get out 15 years or so, you start to see a rapid decline in your pavement condition. So basically what the program is trying to do and what pavement management is all about is trying to keep the pavements from this point and moving on back up the ladder. So if this little designation, the time for preventative measures, before that would be a good time to put in some general preventative measures such as microsurfacing, crack sealing, such as that, so you get some additional lifespan out of your pavement. As you start falling down the curve beyond that, that's a good time for surfacing. Once you get beyond that, you're at a reconstruction point. So some of your roadways in your city are actually already at the reconstruction portion of it. So what the program is trying to tell you is how to spend your money most efficiently. So it's pointing out that you want to spend your money on your rehab and also your preventative measures, and maybe not so much on your reconstruct. Because once you're in that reconstruct, you're there whether you do it in year 1 or year 5, you still have to reconstruct. So it's trying to help you out establish your best budget moving forward. Some of the preventative measures that we looked at and have selected in the program, these are typically lower cost, and you do those to extend the life of your pavement. We looked at crack sealing, your patching, and then microsurfacing. And microsurfacing in particular is looked at and is used in our proposed program. And typically that adds another 5 to 7 years onto your pavement life, and it's a low cost. Basically, it's a real thin overlay, if you will, and it's a low-cost addition to add some additional life. The other items are resurfacing, which is your typical mill and overlay, and then your roadway reconstruction, which is your removal of your base. Once we got through and established some of our maintenance items, then we were in a position to further run the program and look at a variety of budgets. So typically, what people generally want to know is, what if we do nothing? What if we don't do anything? How does that work for us? And basically what it tells you is that our ranking will drop down from an 82 to a 74 in 5 years, and you'll have up to 32% of your roadways in that fair or worse category. So this was up from the 13% that you currently have. This is just a slide that shows the breakdown in miles. Again, in that fair or worse condition, now you have 26 miles compared to the 10 or 11 in the existing condition. So obviously, if you don't spend any money, things will get worse. Another question that's typically asked is, all right, what kind of investment is needed to maintain our current rating of 72s or 82s? So we have a rating. What kind of investment annually do we have to make on that, or during that 5-year period? And basically, you have to invest about $10.5 million over that 5-year period if you want to maintain the existing payment rating that you have. Pretty substantial dollar figure. So from there, after some discussions, maybe that's not where we're going to target things. So what are some other alternatives in some of our budgets? So this particular slide kind of has 2 different sets of numbers. On the far left, it has your fair or worse breakdown based on the number of miles, and then on the right, it has your good or better portion of your roadway. And the darker colored blue basically is your current condition. So if you recall, in that fair or worse category, you had about 10 or 11 miles. And if you did no improvement, which was basically the previous slide, you're up to about 25, 26 miles of pavement in that category. If you invest $1 million, you're basically at 20 miles. If you invest $2 million, then you're closer to your existing rating, which you're down around 10, 11 miles. So obviously, the more you invest, the higher the rating of the streets, but just another way to graphically show that. So moving forward, and again, after some further discussions with staff, it was determined that let's see what the $1 million does for it, and let's plug some numbers in. Let's establish our 5-year plan based on that, and then go from there. So that's what we did. And working closely with Eric, we developed a number of preventative maintenance schedules and a milling and resurfacing program, and then put that into our 5-year program. Just to note, the suggested program does not include Samrock or Game Farm. That is being funded separately through like an STP program. So that's obvious that that series of roadways needs improvement, and it's also a capacity improvement as well. Cannonball Trail, there's a proposed LAFO project, which is through the Kane-Kendall Council of Mayors. Basically, it's a milling and resurfacing project that's 75% funded by the feds. That's programmed for 2016, so that was not included in our analysis here. And lastly, the Kennedy and Mill Road improvements, those were not included. They were taken out because right now they're tied into some annexation and developer agreements, and they're basically charged with improving those. So those were kind of backed off. Incidentally, in the rating of those roadways, those are pretty low. They're not rated very high. And on any scenario, if they are included, they're basically at the top of the program. So if they were included, it would be something that the program is telling you that they need attention on that rather soon. So the next series of slides basically produce the the data from the software, combination of your rehabilitation list of streets, which is your milling and resurfacing, basically 3 inches removal and replacement. And then your bottom list of streets are your maintenance, which basically is consisting of your microservices. So we're looking at, again, trying to stay within that $1 million range and provide a combination of rehab and maintenance. And that's basically provided throughout the next 5 years. As we get out toward the end of the 5-year program, it gets a little hard to identify the maintenance list of streets. So those will have to be basically looked at on an annual basis. At the end of each year, new data will be entered and new programs will be run to establish those parameters in those streets. Again, in your binder, we've put a variety of exhibits. Exhibit D would be the overall plan. Lists all the roadways out, shows that graphically, and then behind there we have a series of subsets that show just the individual years and how that breaks down, how that is broken down. We thought it'd be good to provide an example too. How does this relate to again the pavement condition curve here? So we took an example, Houston Street, that has a ranking of 59, and as you can see, it kind of falls right within that time period where you should be doing some resurfacing. And basically, after you resurface, that will push it back up, get it to that 90 to 95 ranking again, and we'll add several years again to the life of that pavement. Another example, microsurfacing. This particular ranking came in at 69. So again, on the old pavement management curve, that kind of falls into the time for preventative measure types. So we're looking at microsurfacing. This typically happens in younger pavement. And again, this will add 5 to 7 years to the life of the pavement over time. Just a couple additional comments to make, some additional budget considerations. Right now, we put in the estimates on what we believe the costs are as they are today. There are some inflation factors built into the program, but especially over the last 5 to 10 years, construction costs have sometimes exceeded some of those numbers. So those will be some items that we'll look at on an annual basis. And the budgets don't include any utility work. Recently, Eric and I have been working on a capital improvement program. We've identified a number of underground utilities that need some attention and addressing, and those are included in the mix here. And some additional plan considerations.
I'm sorry, you said they are included?
They're not. They're not. Sorry. And some additional plan considerations, just to keep in mind. Again, it's what the program produces is kind of a planning document, if you will. And there are sometimes there are things that dictate moving things around, shifting things around. There may be some strategic values to advancing and delaying some projects. Perhaps it's related to an underground utility project that's critical to be constructed. Sometimes project locations are important. You'd like to maybe group a number of projects together instead of having them spread out. If you have them spread out, that's not the most efficient for a contractor. You need a table for that in the end. And you might have, it might be connected to an adjacent improvement. Maybe there's work on 47, for example, or another state route, it would make sense to maybe advance it or delay it here. So those are just some things to consider moving forward. I don't know if any questions at this point, or otherwise Bart will jump in
I
finance.
just have one quick question. In our other program that we had, the roads program that we had here, they did sidewalks. Is that included in any of these estimates?
It is not included in the estimate that you see.
So it's just like curbs and gutters?
It's basically, right, it's between the edges of pavement or between curb and curb.
It's not, it does not include curb.
Oh, it doesn't.
This is pavement.
Okay, so the next two slides are going to be two financing or funding options. And you don't have to necessarily finance these, and that's a discussion we have over the next couple months budget. And as a reminder, we're hoping to have the budget publicly available by January 5th, having a discussion on it, first presentation on the January 8th City Council meeting, and then continuing it through February. So the first slide here is basically to maintain your 82 service level based on the recommendations of the program. And again, as Brad stated earlier, it does not include Salmonacan Game Farm, which we already have budgeted, so you don't need to worry about that one necessarily. And then it's exclusive of that number. Cannonball Trail, it's a minimal dollar amount and it's a high funding level from this other governmental entity, so we do think that we will be able to fold that into next year's budget without a problem. And then Kennedy and Mill Road, which, as Brad said, are developer obligations that we are talking to a couple different developers on actually accelerating that work, potentially saving them money in the long run too. So that's ongoing. Okay, so but this first one's about $10.5 million over 5 years. So we could do that as a pay-as-you-go model. If we had $6.5 million in that first year, that would be the recommendation under just this strict engineering study, and then the dollar amounts vary over the next couple of years. So what we wanted to do was show that same dollar amount over a 15-year payback period, so that you can see how much interest you're actually paying if we were to go out and bond that. Again, that's assuming that we get a 4% interest rate based on our bond rating, that we can identify pledged revenue sources, which Rob might say, Art, you're nuts for putting that number up there and having a pledged revenue source next to it. So there's a lot of things we still have to talk about, but you get the idea. It's about $3.6 million in interest. So there's a conversation that we have to have for any funding source, that if we go out to bond for it, this doesn't really take care of everything for the next 20 years. It's only for the next 5 years. So you have to go out and do this again 5 years from now. So there comes a point when you might say, you know what, I don't really want to keep throwing, $1 million at this each year over the next 15 years. I prefer to do as much of it as we can without paying any interest. That way we can use that money that would have been interest to actually build roads, in years 6 through 10. So just a conversation to have. So next slide, please. So this was based on, it's a $1 million funding scenario, which we showed kind of the 5-year road plan in a couple prior slides as to what we think we could actually accomplish. Now, I will say that the $1 million funding scenario was very realistic under our budget projections as of about a month and a half ago. Between the non-home rule sales tax and the other budget performance items, we were shooting for between an $800,000 and $1 million road program, pay-as-you-go per year. So since the past month and a half, we've decided that we need to basically cap off the municipal building impact fee fund. We have to address the rec center deficit, obviously. So those things all have made the funding projection a little bit less clear, obviously. So I don't have an exact dollar amount for you yet. I know that it's probably less than $500,000 is what we're going to be able to do. Could be as low as $100,000 or $200,000, depending on how some revenue projections flush out. So again, $4.5 million over 5 years, or we can go out and bond for it, and then we're paying $1.6 million in interest over a 15-year period. So from a financing perspective, we would always say, whenever you go out and look at financing something, you should be paying it back over basically the lifespan of the capital item that you're funding. So for a road, it's 25 years. We could go out to 20 years under traditional bonding methods if there was something else that came up. You might be able to go a little bit further If we were not home rule, we could easily go for, or if we were home rule, we could go past 20 years. So, you know, you do have those variables that potentially change over the next few years. But again, you know, even a $4.5 million principal turns into 6.1, almost 6.2 million, and then you're still paying $400,000 or $500,000 per year. So, you know, it's not really easy to just slot this into the budget and say, okay, we've got enough money, we can just draw down reserves over the next few years. So, those are our two current, you know, funding scenarios I wanted to show, just in case if anybody was curious. Because one of the times we did go out and we did bond for about $4.5 million, $5 million worth in the mid-2000s. We're paying that off right now. You know, if you were to go out, like the bike path referendum or something else, library construction, and just say, we're going to ask everybody to increase property taxes as a result of this study, the current program for a traditional residential house would be about $14 per month. So it's $168 per year. And then the $1 million per year, again, that's not putting any money into it at all from the budget, just asking for a strict bond, would be about $6 a month, or $72 annual. Again, not something I think we're going to recommend, but you just kind of get an idea of how that falls into perspective with either water rates or garbage reductions or electric aggregation reductions.
In that last conversation, are you suggesting that, and I know you're saying you're not recommending it now, but are you suggesting that you vote tax increase to pay for this in lieu of issuing bonds? Is that what you said?
No, I was just trying to give some perspective. If we were to pass a referendum and say we're going to bond for this and ask for a property tax increase just as an incremental revenue source, that would be what the dollar amount would be to a traditional homeowner.
You and I had a discussion a year or so ago, and I recognize with the economy the way it is now is not the time. But if the economy were to turn around, maybe you should representative do what the city of Rockford did, which was basically have the tax revenue in advance of doing the program, and therefore avoiding having to book bonds and saving that money to get the bonds to actually.
Sure, yeah, you could do that too. You do it the year before and then pay it down. So that's always an option. Any questions? Now, the purpose of this, we were going to try to email this entire presentation to you on Thursday and include it in the packets. And the individual funding scenario is just too long for us to calculate. So this is going to be available on the website. We'll post it as a supplemental packet. I've got it in PowerPoint format if anybody at home is interested in the actual electronic file. And we can discuss it at the next meeting. We can discuss it over January and February. We really don't need to get everything together until we start to figure out our budget picture in the next couple of months.
Numbers changed since you've had these.
Yes. Yeah, and actually, we meant to replace yours. I think you was the only one we did. So everybody else has updated numbers except the mayor. Yes. Poor form, probably, but I apologize.
And just a question for Brad. On these yearly recommendations, are these streets in priority order? In other words, let's just say we pay as we go and we can't get to a couple. Do they, the last ones on the list, push over to the next year? Or is there some other method here?
I believe they're printed in alphabetical order.
Okay, so there's not priority order.
They're not in priority order, they're done alphabetically.
And then
They're priority by year, though.
Yes.
Right.
That's correct.
And then the other thing, you used the word reconstruction, and then on the recommendation was to use rehabilitation. Are those interchangeable? Are we looking at the same process?
In the annual programs, I guess we don't think we need to reconstruct. So reconstruct is it's a method that's out there that could have been selected by the program, but it wasn't. So the rehabilitation, and I apologize if that wasn't made clear, is basically mill and overlay. So you basically go in and you would grind off your pavement and then replace it. So that's what we mean by rehabilitation.
Okay, so let's just take, for example, the first one here, 80th Street. Everybody knows that's a horrible street. According to this plan, you're going to redo the whole road, is that correct?
Right, you would basically mill off approximately 3 inches, and then you would put 3 inches, 3.5 inches back. But the program is not suggesting, for example, that you remove the base underneath the pavement and replace it. It's saying the base is strong or base.
And the other thing that we talked about a little bit, but is important is like Adrian Street, in one area there's curb and gutter, there's storm sewer, and then there's a few blocks where it's just, it goes into people's yards. There's no curb, there's no gutter, there's no storm sewer. So, as part of our capital improvement program planning, we may look at that section and say, well, we need to put in storm sewer for this entire 4-block length because it floods out somebody's home or, it just doesn't meet our own codes. So we may say, on top of this cost, we need an additional $200,000 into our storm sewer program to be able to completely rehabilitate the area.
So drainage was taken into account when you put the study together?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Not at all. So that's something we have to do after the fact. This is just based on pavement quality.
And that's typically, one of the reasons why a road deteriorates is because of poor drainage, when we run into that in many streets of ours.
Yep.
So, I guess the other comment I want to make is, just looking at the map, it's obvious that a lot of these roads are located in the older parts of town. And that's kind of, in a way, a little surprising because the in-town road project addressed a lot of those roads. And it just shows how much more we have to do in those parts of town. They've been neglected for so many years, and now we're playing catch-up on it. And unfortunately, it's a costly proposition here, so.
Yeah. And we did exempt the roads that have not been accepted yet?
Correct.
Okay, so the other thing that's kind of hanging off the balance sheet is, there are areas of Grand Reserve and Bristol Bay that, may have 20 lane miles of roadway in it that, we're saying we're not maintaining it, we're not accepting, obviously, until the developer completes the subdivision in the area. But for whatever reason, we end up cutting a deal with one of those developers at some point in the future, you might end up accepting a roadway that already has 5 or 10 years worth of life on it, if you don't make them bring it up to standard. So it's an important factor to consider. You've got those things kind of hanging off the distance.
To add to that point, we also had them test those streets. So now they're in our database, so when they do get paid, we can put that in our database and bring it back up to 90 within the notation.
Correct. So we have the data, we just didn't make a recommendation on it because we're not obligated to.
Any other comments, questions? Yes.
I just kind of want to go back to Larry's point, which was the point I was trying to make about, the curb and gutter and the storm sewers and everything. When we do this, this is a lot of money. I mean, to add that on, which it needs, it's going to, do we have any idea how much more that would add to this, to do some of these roads that are, a lot of the roads that are listed are, Adrian, that's in the old section. I think that would be beneficial to know too with this information.
That is part 2 of our.
Oh, okay.
This was the building block. It gives us a spot to start. I started working on the water and sewer portion of the day, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
And then in those areas, if you look, like Center Park, we already had the drainage. Houston Street does not, Hydraulic Avenue West does not need it. Jackson Street is fine. Morgan Street in that area, we need a little drainage, and Tower Road doesn't need that. So I kind of look at those and go through those and say, okay, now we need to look closer to these streets.
But the prices do not.
Yeah. We have the slides, so.
And you'll be given Public Work Committee, monthly updates, reports.
Absolutely, as we go along.
And it will be a continuing conversation as we talk about budget.
I just want to say, I voted against this, but I find this to be fascinating and really great information, and I think it's going to help us.
Even better if we had a bunch of money.
It's an awesome study, and it's good for us.
No, I think it's good. It's going to be a long-range project. I'm hoping to put something in place here that the city can follow for 20 years, So, thank you, Brad. You're welcome. Okay, we have no public hearings. Do we have any citizen comments on items before the council today? Hearing none, I will move on to the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Pelosiman,
Aye.
Machuski,
Aye.
Spear,
Aye.
Buckhauser,
Aye.
Vogt,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting for November 13th, 2012 as presented.
So moved. Second.
Comments or questions on minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Moving on to mayor's report, I'm going to take number 3 first, the referendum question. I know Bill wanted to be present for that discussion. So I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the United City of Yorkville, Kendall County, Illinois, a referendum of whether the city should appoint rather than elect the offices of city clerk and city treasurer, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved.
Second. Comments or questions on this one? We've discussed it many times already. Nothing? Would you like to talk?
Yeah, I can only speak for the treasurer's position. I feel it contributed to the city over the years. However, the city has evolved to a point which, in my opinion, like the treasurer is not required. Also, an appointed treasurer would ensure a qualified person. I suggested this change in the past, and I haven't been coming to meetings.
Well, you were with it, though. All right, there's no comments or questions. Roll call, please.
I have a quick
Oh, yes,
question.
sir.
So if we pass it and the referendum passes, the two individuals in office will remain in office until their term expires?
Correct.
And this is a binding referendum.
Correct.
Whatever the voters say, no question about it.
Right. And everyone's always talking about smaller government. I mean, this is a step in that direction.
For the record, this is how Oswego has it. Oswego is bigger than us, and they still have appointed.
There are many municipalities.
Okay, roll call, please.
Spears,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Buckhauser,
Aye.
Olszewski,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Vogt,
Aye.
Hutt.
Aye.
Okay, next I have a proclamation for National Drunk and Drug Driving Prevention Month, this month, December 2012. Whereas motor vehicle crashes killed 918 people in Illinois during 2011, and whereas hundreds of those deaths involved a driver impaired by alcohol and/or drugs, and whereas the December holiday season is traditionally one of the most deadly times of the year for impaired driving. So now therefore, I, Mayor Gary J. Gunski, do hereby proclaim December 2012 as Drunk and Drug Driving Prevention Month in the United City of Yorkville. Okay, next and last on the mayor's report, I'll entertain a motion to approve a resolution approving a real estate agreement with Imperial Investments LLC for the sale of property owned by the United City of Yorkville, Illinois, Lot 6, Van Emmon Street, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
Second.
Okay, this was before us last meeting. We had a lot of changes we took into account. I think there's a red line and everything copied in the packet.
Yeah, everything got added that I personally asked for, so I thank you for making those changes. On page 3 of the amendments, when it describes the section, it describes the establishments located on the south side of Bridge Street. I believe that should be the west side of Bridge Street, between Van Emmon and Hydraulic. It says south side of Bridge Street between Van Emmon and Hydraulic. I don't think that's possible. So that's the only error I saw, but otherwise.
Anyone else?
Just want to make sure I understand this right. Alderman Grossman brought this up last meeting. The remaining parking spots will remain free to the public, and that's written in your specific.
They added that on page, the bottom of page 2, they added the wording, "at no charge for use." So, yes.
I agree totally with that.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Spears,
Aye.
Colosimo,
Aye.
Buckhauser,
Abstain.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Teeling,
Aye.
Vogt,
Aye.
Hut.
Aye.
Okay, we have no Public Works Committee report. Economic Development Committee report, there is just the informational item on the Bill Incentive Program, the survey results. We went over that in EDC Committee. Do you have anything to present, or you just want to give a quick brief overview?
Just a quick overview, it's just the results from the first 23 survey respondents that we had in the program. We have a total of 60 permits for this program. We're going to provide you with the finalized survey results. Rather than you see that one of the questions were not worded as clearly as possible, we revised that, and we're going to go back and individually call each of those 23 respondents to make sure that the answer is accurate. So if you have attached are the individual questions, the results, and if you look at the last chart, it's just the type of building permits that were issued compared to the bill, the comparison of the bill and traditional permits, and it looks like the bill permits have continually outpaced the traditional permits, except for a couple of months there.
Okay, just to read some of the comments from the people who responded to the surveys. Great program, it was great work for moving to Yorkville. Thank you, nice incentive to a new home buyer to welcome them to a new area. Good program, very motivating. Everyone was wonderful, and we'll tell everyone. And one I like the most, and I bring up whenever I see Mayor LeClaire. We had intended to build a house in Gates Creek, and that's where we go. Okay,
Your Honor, if we can backtrack one moment, I can play Kathy Orr as best as I can. The vote on the lot was 6 out of 9 present, and it's actually a three-quarter vote requirement for mayor and city council. So I believe we need your vote for the record in order for it to pass.
Aye. Yeah, for those wondering, Kathy had a family emergency, so she will not be here this evening. So that's good enough?
Yes.
Attorney Olson?
Scary thought.
And Public Safety Committee report, no admin. Anything from the Park Board? No? Board's not here. Plan Commission or ZBA, nothing? No City Council report, City Clerk? City Treasurer? No report. Community and liaison reports. Yes, ma'am.
I just have one quick one. This is regarding the Southwest Fox Valley Cable and Telecommunications Consortium. And the city of Yorkville recently received a refund for the second quarter, which includes April through June. And our fee was $17,242.82. So our investment essentially is being returned to us, which I think is great news.
Very nice. Yes, sir.
Excuse my voice. For the AACVB meeting, which was held at the end of last month on the 22nd, we had voted here to send forward a 3-year agreement with 2 automatically renewing terms for a 5-year total. The AACVB board did vote to accept that, nearly a majority with 1 board member abstaining from that vote, so it was actually accepted without big problems. And the city of Aurora was the last one that needed to accept. They had not actually had any presentations to the city of Aurora from the CVB. The city of Aurora representative that was there had brought a proposal with the authority of the city to ask for an extension, a 1-year extension of the existing agreement. So the CVB board did accept their 1-year agreement, and they will come forward with a 4-year agreement to match the terms of the rest of the board that's on there. So as it looks, it's going to continue as is. The city of Aurora is in for 1 year. We're in for our 3 years, and then we have our renewal if we choose to. Or I should say if we choose not to renew. We have to actually act if we want to. So we're moving forward with it.
Great, I'm glad everything worked out the way it did. Yeah, I'm glad to still be a member of the Convention Bureau. I would think we'll do a good job, and if not, we have our 3-year up. Any other community liaison reports? Staff reports?
No reports?
Additional business? Yes, sir.
Just a question, maybe I missed this somewhere, but the decorative street lights along 47 have been out now for, I don't know, almost a week. Is that temporary or is that permanent because of the construction?
We'll find out tomorrow. We have a meeting with IDOT, our meeting for Route 47. We're going to ask them to have at least the overhead ones relit. More rentals will be coming.
Okay, and I kind of had a question for the council. I'd like to poll you guys and get some feedback. You know, we're going through and doing the recreation catalog that's going to come out soon. And one of the conversations I went back and forth with staff on was, you know, one of the arguments I heard against the rec center was that people don't want to see us competing against private business. We run a city-run preschool. You know, I know when I first moved here, there was pretty much one choice for preschool, and that was Small World that was run by Sandy Lindblom. There are now many preschools. I'm just wondering how the council feels. I mean, should the city be in the preschool business? Does it compete with private industry? I'm open to feedback on it. But I mean, if we're not going to compete with private industry, we shouldn't. I mean, we shouldn't pick and choose where we do and where we don't.
I was just gonna say, I don't know, because I haven't checked with any other preschools, if they have waiting lists or if their classes are low, you know, if their classes are low attended, I mean, that would make a difference too. I don't know. So it's hard to answer that right now.
They wouldn't, because if they did have waiting lists, then some entrepreneur would see that and open up another preschool. I'm of the opinion that we shouldn't be in the preschool business. I mean, I heard from a lot of people says we shouldn't compete with private industry. That's why I'm leading. I'm getting some good pushback from staff. I mean, it's a good conversation. I was wondering if anyone here had any input on it.
I think we need more information. I don't, obviously, you don't place preschools, so I don't know the scene for preschools. I don't know how many we have. I don't know what our enrollments are. So I don't know. Honestly, I guess I would need more information before I had an opinion one way or the other.
Okay.
Just one addition to that, I put my kids through preschool here in town, Kitty Campus, and the reason we chose that over ours is because ours, the city, the Parks and Rec one, did not offer the full coverage from, let's say, 6 or 7 in the morning till 5 at night. So for me, it was, ours is limited.
Pretty much for the school year it runs. It doesn't go year-round like Kitty Campus or anything else.
And it's only certain hours. I don't think it covers the whole day even.
No. But, yeah, we can definitely get some more information. That's a topic I want to bring up at the next park board meeting, too. So. Okay, any other additional business? Yes, ma'am.
To tap onto that, too, a lot of the daycare, other, like Kitty Campus and Loving Arms, have their own bus service, so they work with the school district for before and after school programs, and we don't have that. We don't have that ability to offer that. So that's something, too, that you have to consider. I think working individuals tend to go to the existing Kitty Campus, Loving Arms, Children of America. They all have their bus service that does the rounds of our schools.
Right. Okay, there's something I want to throw out in the conversation we had recently. Anything else? We don't need an executive session, correct? What about the anything here? Do we have any citizen comments about anything you would like to talk about? Now's your time. Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Oh, no, we're having a meeting on the 19th?
We are,
Yes, have a meeting on the 19th. I passed it.
Is that why you didn't get the update?
It will be a quick window. Thank you all for coming.